Hello, and welcome to the Focus Friday series with the KU Alumni Association and Student Alumni Network. My name is Mykala Sandifer, and I serve as the Director of Inclusive Programs and Talent Development. I am excited to be your moderator for today's session titled New Year, Better You. As a reminder, Focus Fridays is a Student Alumni Network program series aimed at exposing students to campus resources, community partners, through voices of diverse leaders within our Jayhawk community. The Focus Friday series is offered virtually 2 Fridays a month. Today, we are highlighting the Health Education Resource Office, or HERO for short, as a source for KU community wellness through partnerships that support innovative approaches toward optimal health while maximizing academic and professional success. They offer programs, presentations, events, and one-on-one health coaching with different content areas. These areas include sexual health, alcohol, tobacco and other drugs, self-management, nutrition, and physical activities. Today, I am joined by Zach Newby. Zach came to KU after moving from the DC area to complete their degree in community health. Here at KU, they run the Healthy Choices and Daily Life programs. They are responsible for the alcohol, cannabis, and other drugs and self-management content areas for HERO. Welcome, Zach. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me back. Hey, y'all, my name is Zach. I use they, them pronouns, and I am a health educator at the Health Education Resource Office.
Awesome. So we are excited to learn more about the importance of self-management today, common challenges that students navigate around this topic, and some tips and resources for students as the semester progresses. We're going to get started. I'm going to ask you some questions, Zach, and you're going to give us the answer. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Awesome. Let's kick it off with you giving us a definition or an overview of what self-management is.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of those things that we chat about pretty much every presentation that we give out, any sort of outreach event. This is something that we're chatting about because while it's one of those things that I specifically talk about in our daily life courses and classes, self-management is such a large thing and like covers all of our content areas and all the general aspects of wellness. To the Health Education Resource Office and how we're going to chat about it today, self-management are the things in your life that you can control that affect you. We mean that very intentionally because there are so many things that are outside of our control. There are so many things that we can't have anything to do with that are going to affect us physically, mentally, emotionally. So self-management are just those things about you in your life that you actually have the ability to manipulate for the better of you, manipulate, use to your advantage, do things that can help you be a more healthy, rounded person.
Awesome. This is exactly what I need today. So, how can poor management or poor self-management impact college students?
Yeah, so I mean, I think to dig into this question, right, we have to acknowledge like why we talk about self-management in the things that we can't control, right? Because there are so many things in our life, rather it be the way that people treat us, the way that society treats us, our access to things, our access to education, to food, to things that help us manipulate our and help our mental health, right? There's so many things that we don't have control over there, right? So that's a big part of it. Self-management is really a pretty niche area that we can control because we cannot control, systems of oppressions. We can't control racism. We can't control transphobia, right? We can combat these things and we can hope to address them, but those are things ultimately that we don't have any sort of control over, and certainly things that we can't solve overnight, right? So self-management, the way that it impacts us can be pretty small, but have a pretty big effect. So when we talk about poor self-management, we're talking about a lot of like emotional well-being, right? So this can emotionally impact us in a great way because if there are things that we can control, such as the way that we sometimes can react to situations, our coping skills, identifying support systems, setting boundaries with people, right? All these things can be within our control in some instances, right? But largely we have control over. So all these things are going to be impacted us. And if the way that you are interacting with people, your relationships, how you're choosing to cope with things are not the greatest, right? Then emotionally, mentally, this is going to have a pretty intense impact on us. As college students, you all are under so much stress, so much immense stress, especially if you're sophomores and freshmen, the first time you have some sort of autonomy and being real whole humans, right? These are going to have even greater impacts because the stakes feel so much higher because this is the first time you're really starting to dig into what self-management means to you. And these skills, that you are going to start to hone in on now and really figure out what works for you. if they're not the best, or you're not figuring out the ones that are best for you now, right, these might continue for a long time. And we want you to find those self-management skills that are the best and can make you, the happiest and give you the most joy.
That's awesome. And I think really as you've been explaining kind of the nuances around self-management, I think focusing on what you can control is really important. I think there are so many other outside factors that we don't have control over. And so to your point, really figuring out where is my lane of control and how can I optimize and treat myself well in that space. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and it's even like, to dig even more into that, I love that you brought that back up, because that looks so different for everybody, right? When I looked at these questions, that's going to be like my final piece of advice. But really, like, the self-management, because the way that we interact with the world is so different for everybody, that means that these are going to be so individual as well.
yeah. Yeah, honoring that is really important too. So thank you for saying that. Okay, awesome. So share with us maybe a few important skills that students can work to develop to support their self-management.
Yeah. So without getting into like specific time or stress management that we're going to chat about here, really, those bigger things are starting to take is one of those bigger things is starting to take inventory of your emotions. You know, to understand the skills that are going to work for every person and how different they're going to be, you have to understand what are the things that you might need changed. What are the things in your life that you might need addressed? So taking some sort of big inventory about the things in your life that are affecting you and your goals is gonna be like the most important skill to start out to address these things, right? You have to know what is affecting you, how it's affecting you, what emotions it's bringing up, how's it affecting you mentally, emotionally, physically, right? Because they're all three pretty separate, right? And then what are the ways that you can interact with those and change those, right? So I think one of the most important skills that you can start to develop is to figure out those things that are stressing you out, those things that are impacting you in a negative way, right? And what are the ways that you actually have access to? So I literally mean taking inventory, right? Writing these things down. What are those things that you do have control over? What are those things that you don't have control over, right? That's gonna be one of the like first steps. Past that, one of the most important skills is being okay to fail at taking care of yourself. There are going to be things that you're going to try. There are going to be ways, self-care ways. There are going to be coping skills that you try that just don't do it, that might make things worse. And that's just kind of part of the process of trying to figure out what works for you.
That's awesome. I think about some of the coping skills or ways that I have tried to engage in self-management. And I know for me, physical activity is one that's really helpful. So I'm a yogi, yeah, at heart. And so yoga has actually been really helpful for me and because it's something that I can control. It's about giving control, but also having control. And so for me, it's been a good way to manage stress. So I think that's to your point, it can look very different. For some folks, it'll look like that. For other folks, it might look like journaling or um, you know, uh, eating well, or it could be a number of different things.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's like one of those things that I tell students and staff if I chat to them is, I don't know if this is a skill or if it's part of self or stress or time management, but find the things in, right. So when we talk about being stressed and living with anxiety or depression, a lot of these things, some of these things in some form impact dopamine, serotonin, and chemicals in our brain that are affecting us and how we're feeling, right? So what are ways that we can like hack that, right? Just like you said, doing yoga, physical activity feels good for you. There's probably like a release of dopamine. So, what are those ways that you can like hack your brain to get it to do that? Is that comfort food? That, having homemade macaroni and cheese makes you feel great. Okay, that's a skill that that can get you that dopamine rush to make you feel a little bit better. Is it physical exercise, like you said? Is this some sort of like indulgence in some sort of way that makes you feel good, or moving your body, right? All those things are awesome.
Awesome. So that's a little bit, we started diving into stress management and additional tips that you would offer students. So, do you have additional stress management tips that you would offer? Do you feel like that's a great place for students to start when they're trying to work through that?
Yeah, I think I definitely think that's a good place to start, is to start to find those coping skills that are going to work to just, make you feel good, make you feel okay, make you be able to survive in those moments. What are some acute things that you can do? Like, if you go do this activity, if you go talk to this person, finding your support system. One of the most important things, especially with stress management, is to make sure you're acutely able to survive and be okay and safe, right? Um, and I know that can sound really intense, and I don't necessarily mean safe in the aspect of hurting yourself. Well, it could mean that. I also just mean like emotionally, are you going to be able to get through the day? Are you going to be so exhausted that you can't do anything? Are you not going to be able to sleep the rest of the day? Will you not eat? Right? What are some things that you can acutely do to help those things happen? Right? So finding those things that we just chatted about are really important. Um, and then stress management, what I just kind of alluded to there, is making sure you have some sort of support system. Rather that be your friends that already exist. Who are those friends that you know that you can trust if you're having a bad day, that won't judge you? Those friends that you can just not talk to for a month, call them up and they'll act like nothing's changed. Or is it your family? Is it your mom? Is it your brother, your sister? Or is it their staff on campus? Is there a safe place that you can go to on campus just to hang out and just be and exist, right? Find those support systems that exist so that you can get through those times and you can have people, telling you good things and supporting you so that you're okay.
Awesome. And so thinking about being able to set aside the space to kind of do that audit, to figure out what works for you, to figure out the best way to support yourself. Students have so much going on and always feel like there's not enough time. And so thinking about that, what are some tips that you can offer for students around time management and how that kind of feeds into their self-management overall?
Yeah, absolutely. This is such a great question because, two things. One, when I have my daily life sessions, which we'll chat about, daily life sessions, majority of the time, probably literally 80% of the time, uh, I'm chatting with students about time management. And then we do a survey. The Health Education Resource Office sends out a survey, and students can anonymously report all sorts of things around their behaviors, rather it be stress, food, alcohol use, all sorts of stuff. And the number one impediment, which was to academic success, the number one impediment that students reported, self-reported, and this was new this year, was overwhelmingly procrastination. So time management is a huge thing to chat and talk about. Specific tips, right? Again, there is no one way to solve time management for everyone. What I like to chat about, and which I put up actually on our Instagram last semester, is something that's called stress mapping or energy mapping. I found that this is a really cool tool that can help a lot of different people in a lot of different situations. So for time management, right, and talking about it in procrastination and mental health and kind of combining all these topics, do something called energy or stress mapping. With this, you're starting to kind of have a priority list. What are the things that you have to get done throughout the day? What are the things that you have to get done today, tomorrow, or the week, right? But we're tackling it in small chunks. So writing out the things that you have to get done during the day. And then you're writing out the times of the day that you have the most energy, that you feel the most motivated, and then also that you feel the least motivated and the most stressed or the most anxious, right? And then thirdly, we're going to try to line up those things that are really hard for us to do around those times that are easiest for us to do things. So if one of the most stressful things for you to do is to call your mom every day, you don't want to put that at the time that you are the most stressed and the most anxious, right? Because that just makes the conversation harder. It makes you feel worse. Not going to help, right? Instead, put the conversation with your mom at a time that you feel like you have some good energy and you're motivated to do something that you have to do. Same works for, tasks that you have to do for your school or for work. Line them up in times that are the easiest for you to do. And then inversely, right, the things that make you feel the best and make you feel the happiest, or the people that make you feel that, line those up at the times that you feel the worst, right? Or that you need some motivation, or that you might be anxious, so that you can use the things that you've already done. If we've taken the inventory that we talked about, just apply it, right? And while that doesn't necessarily create more time in the day, it can hopefully help you manage that stress with your time a little bit better.
That's such a good tip, and I think that's the one thing that I probably will take, if in addition to the other things, but that I can actionably do. Because I think I've noticed there are certain times of the day when I'm more anxious than others, or I can be more focused And I'm a procrastinator. I will self-admit I struggle. So I think that's really helpful, energy mapping and really aligning the things that make you happy, the times that you're most productive, and finding the best flow for yourself. I think that's awesome. So you started to talk about doing some of this work with students. So what resources do you want to highlight that Hero offers to support students around self-management?
Yeah, so everything that you said at the beginning is pretty much what I want to re-highlight is, all the health educators here and our program coordinator, Jenny, you can meet with us one-on-one. And while we all have specific content areas and we might tell you to chat with this person instead, all of our content areas have to do with self-management, sex, relationships, right? Our volunteering, the opportunities that we have, nutrition, like alcohol, it's all connected, right? So meeting with us one-on-one is one of the best things to do that you can do. All of our services are completely free. We are paid by your money to serve you all as students. So you can absolutely come to us. You can take up our time. You can schedule with us on the internet. I specifically have a program that's called Daily Life, which is geared around self-management. I meet with students anywhere from 1, 2, 3 throughout the semester, right? And we can directly talk about time management, stress management, making sure you know who your support system is, how to implement boundaries in your life, or if you just want a space to come and chat, you can do that too.
Awesome. Yeah, resources, a ton of them on campus. Gotta use them, gotta access them. They're accessible. And if I was a student, I would definitely be at your door asking for assistance with managing my daily life. So awesome.
Yeah, and
um,
this is actually a great point too, is that one of our biggest roles is to be campus collaborators and to tell people where you can go. So if I'm not the best fit for you, maybe SGD is the best fit for you. If they're not, maybe OMA is. Where can I get you to you can plug into a community that is best for you, right? All of us do that, and that's also one of those services. Past that, I also should mention CAPS is upstairs at Watkins Health Center Services. So counseling and psychological services. They always have, you can always do intake on the same day. It might take some time for you to get an appointment, but those are, I think they're $15 a session now, which are incredibly affordable. So that's also one of those services as well.
Awesome. I think that's important too to mention, just again, highlighting the different resources that exist across campus and how, in order for us to really survive and thrive, there's an intersection of all those pieces of us and recognizing that there are campus resources to support those different areas. So that's really awesome. So I want to ask you, what are a few of your favorite tools to support your own self-management?
Yeah, gosh, they change so much, right? Um, right now, I'm a huge Pokemon nerd. There's a new Pokemon card set that came up. I love researching that and just learning more about it just because it takes my mind off stuff. One of the tools that is kind of constant for me is working out. I'm a power lifter, so making sure that I carve space in my days throughout my weeks to let that time be what it is about, which is working out for me. Because there's, weight on the bar. The only thing I can control in that instant is making sure I don't get crushed, right? So it helps me not worry about other things. Past that, I really try to do a lot of work boundaries. My office, I'm super lucky to work where I'm at. Jenny helps us, make sure that, we're not working all the time 24/7, that we are not accessible 24/7 to all people, because that would not be healthy for us. If we're taking days off, making sure there are days off and really trying to, have that work-life balance as much as possible. What about you?
Yeah, I'm jealous. I'd love to be able to lift. It's something I'd aspire to do. I need help. I need support. Um, for me, I think, I mentioned yoga. I think that is like really something that I've been trying to get back into with the start of the new year. So that for me is extremely helpful. When I've got anxious thoughts or when I feel overwhelmed in any way. The other thing I like to do is write. I, used to have a poem book, starting from when I was in middle school that I kind of had through high school. And I recently found it and have kind of gotten re-inspired to start to just write my thoughts out. Some of them are just journaling thoughts and some of them may be poems, but writing has also just been really helpful for me when I need to get my thoughts out and try and bring myself back to like a centered place.
That's super cool. I love to hear it when people are writing. It just is such a cool, like unique, like way of thinking. So that's really awesome.
Yes, I don't share it with anybody, but I definitely, I
Yeah.
got pages. Okay, well, we are coming to the end of our time, but is there any final piece of advice that you would like to leave students with? You've shared so much with us, but a final piece of advice on self-management, something actionable, something they can kind of take as a nugget from today.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing in that we've kind of alluded to the whole time is that there's no one singular way to approach this. What we see is our stereotypical things that are like bad for you, rather it be alcohol, food, shopping, sex, like all these things can absolutely be ways that can harm ourselves, but these can also be helpful tools for us to figure out what works for us and what doesn't work for us. So explore these things, explore all the ways that you can really try to show up for yourself. And yeah, it's going to be hard. There's a difference between self-care and survival, and trying to figure out how to do both at the same time is really hard. So give yourself time to try to figure these things out.
I love that. A difference between self-care and survival, and give yourself grace. I think that's really important. Um, well, Zach, this has been so great. Thank you so much for sharing more with us about self-management and the services that are accessible to students through Hero. We appreciate you and the work that you're doing to support student well-being on KU's campus. As a reminder to everyone, we launch Focus Friday sessions twice a month. And each session focuses on a different topic, highlighting campus and community partners on our campus. For more details about this session, you can find information on our website at kualumni.org/programs. Lastly, if you have questions about the Focus Friday series or have ideas that you want to share, please don't hesitate to reach out to us by emailing at kualumni@kualumni.org. Zach, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. See you later, everybody. Rock chalk.